April 22nd, 2020, from Phil's house in sunny Austin, Texas, this is Just to Save the World News with your host, Phil the Fixer.
Hey guys, how am I doing? I'm fine. Quarantining alone isn't affecting me at all. Why would you guys even ask that? Man, I don't even need this anymore. I'm out. Y'all, I'm just playing. Running from the top.
April 22nd, 2020.
Alright, we don't need to listen to that again though.
Your host, Phil the Fixer.
Good evening and welcome back to Just to Save the World News. We have a very special episode today because it's Earth Day!
Combined, I am Captain Planet!
We're going to be discussing this global day of support for environmental protection in depth later in the show. For now, let's cover a few depressing stories that demonstrate why it's so important to continue working to protect our natural environment. What's big, toxic, and headed to Louisiana? Nope, it's not 6'5" Lieutenant Governor of Texas Dan Patrick going to Mardi Gras. It's the 2,500-acre plastic plant dubbed the Sunshine Project. It's expected to be the largest plastic plant in the U.S. and to emit 13.6 million tons of greenhouse gases each year in a region that is already one of the most polluted in the nation. And it's not alone. 88 petrochemical projects along the Gulf Coast are either in the planning stage or under construction. If all are completed, their combined emissions output could reach 150.8 million metric tons, the equivalent of 38 coal plants. The huge plant owned by Taiwanese plastics powerhouse Formosa has become a focal point in the fight against industrial pollution in the region. St. James Parish, found between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, along the Mississippi River, is home of the most toxic air in America, mostly attributed to the 8 industrial plants already operating in just the 5th district of St. James Parish alone, an area of 103 square miles. The residents there are 50 times more likely to get cancer. The neighboring region of St. John the Baptist Parish has already been the subject of a series by The Guardian dubbed Cancer Town.
For decades, the region has been inundated with toxic pollution from chemical plants along the riverbank.
The region, like many others on the front lines of climate and environmental crises, is composed of low-income communities made up largely by people of color. The leaders in this fight, a group of local black women who are now battling another enemy, the coronavirus, which, due to the high levels of industrial air pollution, the community is disproportionately more vulnerable to. Do you want to learn more about this community or how to get involved in their fight? Visit stopformosa.org. In other uplifting news to brighten your day, the melting of glaciers in Greenland and the Antarctic continues to accelerate due to climate change. They are now losing ice 6 times faster than in the 90s. Greenland lost roughly 600 billion tons last year in just a 2-month period alone. Wow, if only the US could get rid of ice like that. Alright, enough of me. Let's go to the real star of our show, our senior correspondent, Deandra Marissette, with our top story today, the history of Earth Day.
Hey y'all, let's get a quick history lesson. April 22nd of 1970 was the first Earth Day. So how did it happen? Let's rewind to the 60s, when people are trying to build more awareness around leaded gas and inefficient cars driving all around us. In 1962, conservationist Rachel Carson released Silent Spring, a book highlighting the importance of understanding the link between air pollution and public health. This book sparked a huge environmental revolution because Carson essentially took a bunch of scientific studies and put them in a quick read that said, if we do nasty things to nature, nature will do nasty things to us. Then there's Gaylord Nelson, the senator of Wisconsin. He wanted to mark a day where people all over the country could gather for teach-ins or educational gatherings to talk about the country's most prominent environmental issues. This was mostly to send Washington a message about the people's environmental priorities, and it worked. Democratic and Republican representatives alike entrusted none other than experienced college students to rally everyone together, most notably Dennis Hayes, the OG Earth Day coordinator. By surrendering a little control and encouraging a grassroots movement, Nelson and all these college students would bring 20 million Americans together to show their support through plant selfies. Educational gathering. The success of Earth Day led to Congress members showing support for a bunch of new protection upgrades. National Environmental Protection Agency, the Endangered Species Act, and valuable amendments to the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act, and Safe Drinking Water Act. So here's what we know. Earth Day was a powerful movement that kickstarted a lot of progress. We're so much more powerful when we advocate together, and there's still so much that we can do.
Thanks, Deandra. In case you just woke up from a coma, we are in the midst of a global pandemic known as COVID-19. But we aren't hearing a whole lot in the news about what causes contagious viruses. So for more on this, let's head to our guest correspondent, Nicole Urego.
Thanks to COVID-19 and its origins as an animal-borne infectious disease, the negative impacts of factory farming on our collective health have once again entered the chat.
So then he said, the tree was plastic all along.
Hey guys.
The World Health Organization states that the greatest risk for disease transmission occurs at the human-animal interface through direct contact with animals, their environments, and their byproducts. Over 10 billion farm animals are being kept in unsanitary, cramped conditions every single year.
Factory farming, which I think is disgusting, and I think pretty much everybody does.
So it's no surprise that an alarming 75% of new and emerging diseases are found in animals.
Wow, that's a lot.
This news is making headlines yet again due to the far-reaching consequences of COVID-19 on our collective health and economies. But what about the people that it's been harming all along? Farms typically store animal waste in open-air lagoons spanning the length of several football fields.
When storms cause those lagoons to flood, the surrounding communities can literally find themselves in deep shit.
These waste facilities have been located historically in close proximity to marginalized, minority, and low-income communities. This is a form of blatant eco-racism. That's racist! Major supermarkets are currently struggling to meet the demand for food staples, not due to any food shortages, but rather the disruption of these massive supply chains. If this virus highlights anything, it's that we need more diverse regional food hubs conducive to our public and environmental health.
Nicole Urego, everybody. Always bubbly and exuberant. Thanks, Nicole. Now let's go back to Deandra for our featured guest interview for today.
Hey everyone, here is Isaias. Isaias, thank you so much for being here with us on Earth Day. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm really excited for everything that's happening and also sending much love and light to a lot of people who are currently in this pandemic. So fast recoveries for everyone throughout the world.
Yes, I love that. And on your platform, you talk a lot about environmental justice, which is feeling hella relevant right now on Earth Day. So I want to take this time to kind of clarify some environmental issues that really impact people, because I think you have a really great voice for that. And that's what you use your platform for a lot. So when we're talking about climate change, we often refer to groups that are the most vulnerable as frontline communities. But can you clarify what types of groups those are, or like what that really means?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most important thing to really understand frontline communities is like first looking into like how race, class, and status really affect one's location and environment. That's like the first important thing. I think the second part is just really understanding three pillars of like the contextual environmental history of a place's environment. So what happened there, to the structures that are in place. So such as like the policies, the people representing, the amount of resources that are being allocated to these communities. And the last one is like, looking into seeing how these industries or what is next to these industries really matter. And just closely looking into like, how do these all intertwine together and really interconnect with each other.
When you're looking at all of these variables, we're wanting people to really understand a little bit better how those variables make you a frontliner. Yeah. Is there like a really good example that you like to use to kind of further explain that?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, like to kind of give it a great example of this, is like factory farms and how it's linked to frontline communities. Is basically the way that factory farms operate is that they really develop on these monoculture scales. So they really develop large scale industries with linear growth without any protection of the environment and really a lot of processes that go within them. But there's two things that factory farms produce, and many more, of course. One is the fact that, the amount of air quality of CO2 and methane that goes into the greenhouse gases is really sometimes nearby communities. So that really causes a lot of the air to be really poor air quality. And that also leads to long-term detrimental health effects for people in those communities, especially those that are vulnerable right now, that are like disabled, people who are disabled, people immunocompromised, the youth. So they're developing all these like long-term health issues. And the second thing is like how water systems are being affected in these communities is basically the way that factory farms are producing their waste through animals. They're not really doing a very sanitary practices / a lot of the waste that goes, it seeps through the soil, which then affects the soil and how it's produced in the long term. But also third, it seeps through the waterways. So a lot of the times what we're seeing now is a lot of communities are demanding justice because their waterway systems are basically poisoned and they can't drink these clean water and they don't have access to clean water anymore.
That's really terrible. I think that we're starting to gain a much deeper understanding now, which I'm really happy about. Just the importance of understanding how important soil and water are. And I think that for a while we've been like, oh yeah, like water is super important, but people don't really identify that too much with soil specifically. But yeah. I hope that now we're starting to make more of a connection with soil being the thing that surrounds the thing you pull out of the ground and like stick in your mouth and put in your body.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm hoping that people are starting to make that connection more. And I feel that. And so I really appreciate you expanding on that. Yeah. As far as with everything that's going on now, with COVID-19, who would you say are some of the frontline communities of coronavirus?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one is like obviously the essential workers that are right now on the front line, like food delivery workers, people who are harvesting our food, migrant farm workers who are usually undocumented, our doctors, our nurses, people who are incarcerated, and also indigenous communities right now that are really isolated away from in their own reservations, but also because of the, lack of attention that's happening on media, a lot of these government systems are going into their communities and trying to develop pipelines, and they're infecting communities and they don't really have access to a lot of medical care out there. So a lot of times we need to be considering like all these other communities, not to say like, farm workers or like doctors or people who are incarcerated are not important, but to really understand that there's so many communities out there being affected right now.
You've touched on race, and I think that bringing race into environmental issues can be somewhat controversial. And I know that you've gotten some backlash on it in the past, but can you clarify why, or I guess how race plays a role in all of this?
Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing to consider is always like, looking back in history. So the settlers arrived around 1492, I think. And, they not only caused like environmental degradation, they completely, created genocide and like stole from indigenous people and killed them and, tried to really they took a lot of their lands away. And right now we're, seeing this, fact that, these people were the community stewardships of their land. They protected the environment. They knew when to really produce a lot of these systems and harvesting and like hunting and like really create circular systems within their own communities. But now what we're seeing is that, a lot of the time in society, we live in a mechanized society where a lot of industries are, the forefront of producing these energies for our society, but not understanding the fact that, they're creating a lot of like structures of colonialism, of this extractive mindset where it's not about, creating healthy communities for everyone. It's about, providing economic GDP growth and forgetting about the people who, may not really speak out against these injustices that are happening.
What would you say is your best advice for somebody who's really trying to, do their best to start understanding environmental justice so that they can be better advocates in the future?
Yeah, I think I always give two things. One is just like really looking back at history, and that's like, the environmental movement history and the environmental justice movement history and how they were different. And you get to see why these movements were created differently, because the environmental justice movement really advocates for people of color that have, been discriminated by a lot of policies and racialized structures, where the environmental movement in the beginning was really focused on like, relief funds and ecological preservation. So it wasn't really focused on connecting that community part. The second thing is like the power of unlearning, right? So a lot of the times, as we continue getting older, we're learning so much more information. We're really exposed to a lot of people. We're exposed to a lot of new ideas, and really to really challenge your own ideas and seeing how, they may be either wrong or you don't have the right contextual history for that. It eventually leads to you, wanting to really push yourself to learn more and really understand why these systems are created today. So I think that power of unlearning is really, up to you, but also it's something that's liberating and something that will continue to show itself throughout the movement.
Thank you, Isaiah, so much for hanging out with us today on Earth Day. Happy Earth Day to you and everyone who's watching, and go follow Career Brown Vegan on Instagram.
Thank you. Bye.
And now, a special message from some eco-conscious warriors from around the globe.
Hey friends, happy Earth Day from beautiful BC, Canada.
Happy Earth Day from Japan.
Hey everyone, happy Earth Day from Puerto Rico.
Hello and happy Earth Day from Norway.
Hey guys, this is Gunjan and happy Earth Day to you all from India.
Happy Earth Day from Nova Scotia, Canada.
Happy Earth Day from the Gambia.
Hi everyone, happy Earth Day from London.
Growing up in Slovakia, I would spend so much time outdoors.
My name is Marina, aka Blackberry Trees, and Earth Day to me means uniting in our collective power to reimagine a harmonious and equitable future for all.
And this year we decided for Earth Day that we're going to start our balcony garden.
Earth Day becomes this great international day for all of us to collaborate on doing something amazing for the planet.
Earth Day is actually a reminder to me that no matter how much you try to reduce, reuse and recycle, there's always a little bit more that you can do into protecting your environment.
My name is Lisa Acevedo, and basically to me Earth Day is really a day to just reflect on how we can live more sustainably and just more consciously.
Earth Day to me is really about remembering where we came from, returning back to the roots, and remembering that we are nature, we are one with nature.
Earth Day for us is a celebration of the home we have and a reminder that we need to do everything we can to look after.
This is a message from my wife and I in support of environmental protection and social responsibility.
You,
I,
and all of us have a role to play.
Together we can do this.
Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day.
Because 2020 may be canceled, but the climate crisis is not. We need people all over the world to take action on Earth Day and every day moving forward to do their part for the planet. So encourage your community, your family members, the dudes 6 feet apart from you across the street, to take action on the climate crisis today. We need everyone to come together to take action for climate justice, for collective resilience, and for real climate leadership if we have a shot at dealing with this crisis. So turn your online movement into an offline one once quarantine is over, and I wish you a happy Earth Day.
Well, all right, that's our show. Thanks for watching.